Hello, it's me. Yes, this is very important. You'll never guess who was just here asking questions. Blake McDaniels. Yes, he said your wife hired him to find you because she's worried about you. Yes, I know. I don't know. He doesn't seem like that kind of guy, but it's possible, I guess. When? Okay. What should I bring? Well, I don't know. Is it even possible to cook on a yacht? I have no idea. Okay, I'll go in the evening. I don't want to leave right now in case he's still there. Of course, I'll make sure he doesn't follow me. I'll go at 3 o'clock in the morning. There will be only a few cars on the road, and I will be able to determine that someone is following me. What about the apartment, the car, all my things? Okay, I'll see you early, Friday morning. I love you, honey. I didn't need Sherlock Holmes's powers of deduction to figure out they were running. I looked at my watch. It was 11 o'clock on a Wednesday evening. I had 28 hours to get everything ready, but at that time I couldn't do anything else, so I went home to get some sleep. The next morning, I called Mrs. Richardson. Hello? Mrs. Richardson, this is Blake McDaniels. Could you please drop off the divorce papers at my office sometime today? If not, I can come and pick them up. Have you found him? Yet? She almost shouted. I never gave assurances to clients until everything was firmly filed. Not exactly, I told her, but I have a very good lead. If everything works out, I'll be looking your future ex in the eyes tomorrow morning. No one will give him these papers except me, she said. No, this is not a very good idea. First of all, I'm going to leave around 2:30 in the morning. Secondly, I have no idea what your husband's reaction will be. It's possible he has a gun. I don't know. But I don't want to worry about you or myself. I don't care. That's why I hired you. Just don't forget to take your gun with you. I doubt he will become aggressive. He'll be angry, but I don't think he'll actually try to do anything. Either way, I'll be there. I'm going to hand him these papers, looking him straight in the eyes. She spoke like a woman on a mission, and she was not going to be convinced otherwise. Okay, I sighed. But today at 2:30, you must be in my office. You can't be late. I won't be late, Mr. McDaniels. I will be there. I needed to make a couple more calls, but after that, I had nothing else to do. Called Stacy to see if she was free for lunch. I met her at DeMar's, a cute little restaurant a couple blocks from where she works. When I sat down at the table, she was a little quieter than usual. Hello, beautiful. How is my girl doing? Yeah, she said, looking away. What's the matter, baby? Are you having a bad day? I'll tell you after we order, she replied. We had already met there several times for lunch, so it didn't take long to order. The waitress wrote everything down in a notepad and left with the menu. A minute later, she returned with coffee and said that our orders would be delivered soon. So, dollface, why are you so gloomy? She took her coffee cup with both hands and stared at it for a few seconds. I got the impression that whatever the problem was, it was important. Last night you made a comment. You said that if I weren't already your ex-wife, you would have proposed to me. Yes. Have you ever really thought about this, about the proposal? Her question took me by surprise. As the song says, we got married in a rush. Those days, I was either on a mission or with Stacy. A friend introduced us. That same night, we destroyed a set of motel sheets and nearly broke the bed. 4 months later, we were saying "I do" in a wedding chapel in Vegas, and a guy dressed like Elvis pronounced us husband and wife. We lived like this for almost a year before we realized that my profession and marriage were not the best combination. Stacy, we already tried it, remember? I'm still a private detective. I still have crazy hours. Damn, I'm leaving at 2:30 tonight to look for a missing person. I don't even know where I'm going or how long I'll be back. Well, we're just older now, Blake, more experienced. When we first got married, I wasn't ready. I mean, I knew what you did for a living, but I didn't know what it entailed. Now I know. Blake, after our divorce, I dated a lot of guys, but I never found anyone who could take your place. I just can't get you out of my head. I was stunned. I had no idea what to say. She picked up her cup and took a sip, still holding it in both hands. Well, what do you think? Now you have to tell me that you still love me, she said hesitantly. The truth is, Stacy, I still love you. It's because I love you that I think this is a bad idea. Do you really think that you won't worry when I'm away on business? You don't think that you won't torment yourself with constant questions about where I am and whether everything is okay with me? She looked up at me. I have a friend at work. Her husband is a fireman. They have been married for 20 years. She told me how she copes. If she can handle it, then I can handle it, Blake. Just at this time, our food arrived. The thought of being married to Stacy again wasn't disgusting, but I was sincerely hesitant. I need to think, Stace. Give me some time. She looked down again with a sad smile, as if she knew my answer would be no. No pressure, Blake. I just thought it was worth mentioning. This put a bit of a damper on the rest of our lunch. As I said goodbye, I kissed her on the lips and told her that I would really think about her words. This seemed to cheer her up a little. I went back to my office and went through my to-do list again. I needed to make another confirmation phone call, but I wasn't going to make it until late in the evening. In the end, I decided to go home and try to get some sleep. For a while, this was my only chance. Unfortunately, Stacy's proposal over lunch kept playing in my head, like a song I couldn't stop thinking about. Around 8 o'clock, I finally gave up. Anyway, I'm already hungry. After making coffee, I put the frozen dinner in the microwave. I switched the TV to the menu and saw that the Oldies channel was showing several episodes of Mike Hammer, one after another. By the time Mike ran out of cases to solve, it was already 1 in the morning, so I jumped in the car and headed to the office. I needed to make one more call. Is everything ready? Great. See you at the party. Thank you. I double-checked that I had everything I needed, then sat back and waited for my client. She showed up 10 minutes early, holding a manila envelope the size of a legal document. After I briefly told her what we would be doing, she asked if I had a gun on me. I assured her that I would never leave the house without it. At 2:30, we were sitting outside Janet's house. I reached into the trunk, took out my homemade bracket, and secured it to the center console, then opened my laptop and snapped it onto the bracket. What are you doing? So we will track her. I have a program that works in conjunction with the transmitter I installed in her car. We'll let her get a couple of miles ahead before we start chasing her. She'll never know we're behind her. God, I'm impressed. It's like I'm riding with James Bond, Mrs. Richardson said with a slight grin. Not really, I answered. Bond's tracking device had a limited range. It is powered by satellites. Our unsuspecting prey could make it all the way to Montana, and we'd never lose it. Just in time, I said as the large garage door opened. We watched the silver cabriolet drive out. I checked my laptop screen and saw that the tracking device had already picked her up on Michigan Avenue heading north. As Sherlock would say, Mrs. Richardson, the game is in full swing. I watched her turn left onto Division before we pulled out. When she got onto northbound I-90, I knew we were in for a ride. It was a little after 5 when we pulled into Rockford. I saw that she had stopped, most likely to use the toilet. We did the same. I brought my passenger and myself a cup of coffee, and when I moved into the driver's seat, I saw that Janet was on the road again. This time we were driving on a 4-lane country road, so we had to be careful not to get too close. We'd been driving for about 20 minutes before we saw another car. By this time, we had almost reached the Wisconsin border. Just before the crossing, Janet turned left onto a 2-lane asphalt road. She drove a short distance, made another turn, and stopped. We're there, I said. Where? I don't see anything but trees. There's a small lake ahead. She stopped at 1358 Pierce Drive. It's right by the lake. Well, come on, let's go. The sooner we get this over with, the better. We drove a little further until we spotted Janet's car. Having stopped, I turned off the engine so that they would not hear our arrival. We approached the cottage. I put my ear to the door and heard a man's voice. Slowly, I tried the door handle. It was open. Nodding to our companion, we rushed inside. Janet screamed, and I thought Richardson was going to shit himself. He looked angrily at his girlfriend. "You brought them straight to me!" he shouted. She was at a loss. Her mouth moved, but nothing came out. Their level of terror seemed out of proportion to the situation. "Here, Richardson's soon-to-be ex shouted, throwing the envelope on the table in front of her husband. I watched to make sure Richardson wasn't trying to do anything and paid no attention to what was happening. When he took out the contents of the envelope, I noticed that the supposed divorce papers were nothing more than blank sheets of paper. Around this time, Mrs. Richardson reached into her purse and pulled out a chrome-plated .38 caliber revolver. The next moment I realized that it was aimed at me. Now, very carefully, Blake, draw your gun using only 2 fingers. My first thought was to wonder if a stylish lady like her knew how to use such a weapon. As I slowly reached for my pistol, I was about to make the decision to lunge at her, when suddenly Eric Wilson, Lieutenant Governor of Illinois, and the source of many long hours of investigation, entered the room. He had a mischievous grin on his face as he approached Mrs. Richardson. "I'll take it, honey," he said, taking the gun from her. I had no choice. I pulled my Beretta from my shoulder holster and held it with 2 fingers. "Now, place him carefully and calmly on the floor, then step back," Wilson ordered. I did what I was told. "Surprised?" he asked painfully. "These tracking devices are very convenient, aren't they? I had one in your car the whole time. You found the bug I installed in your office, but you didn't even check your car." He saw the surprised expression on my face. "I know you thought Richardson planted a bug in your office." When Carla told me this, we both had a good laugh. I looked at my former employer. "So you didn't even go to Knutson's office?" She laughed. "Why?" "I thought you would check your car, but you didn't," Wilson taunted. "That was very unprofessional of you, Blake." "Hey," I said, taking the situation a little too lightly. "Even I can't plan for everything." Wilson laughed. He and Carla were having a good time. "This will be a great epitaph on your tombstone." He didn't think of everything. Mrs. Richardson began to get nervous. "Come on, Eric, shoot him and let's get out of here." "Wait," I begged. "None of this makes any sense. At least tell me why I'm going to die." "Just shoot him, honey." Whether she was beautiful or not, I really didn't like her. A wide smile slowly stretched across the vice governor's lips. "No, honey, he's right. He must know how he is being played. But first, take his gun." Mrs. Richardson picked up my pistol and joined Wilson again. "Did you really think that I wouldn't know that you were investigating me? Come on. Any 2-bit private detective will understand that a person in my position has eyes and ears everywhere. I was about to shoot you during a botched robbery attempt when Carla found her husband's foreign bank account numbers." Shocked, Richardson turned to his wife. "Did you find the numbers?" The evil grin on her face lifted the facade and clearly showed the cruelty of this woman. "That's right, lamb pie." "Then why all this? Why not just divorce me? You have more than enough reasons." She giggled. "Oh, Art, don't be a fool. Why take half when I can have it all?" I looked at Wilson again. "So you and Carla are together?" "Damn," he laughed. "McDaniels, you should be a detective." Art put in his 2 cents again. "I knew you were having fun with someone important," he told his wife. "I just didn't know with whom. Tell me, why did you even marry me? Our marriage was a sham from day one." "Of course, because of the money, dear. You had more of them than all the other guys I was having fun with then." "Anyway," Wilson continued, "when she found the numbers, we decided to get rid of hubby. Unfortunately, he heard Carla mention his passing on the phone and ran away. That's when I came up with a brilliant idea, a way to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Damn, everyone knows you and Art can't stand each other. He made a monkey out of you in open court. So when the cops get here, they'll find that you 2 shot each other. This gun," he said, lifting it slightly to show the one he was holding, "is Art's. He left it when he ran away. So first I shoot you with his gun, then I shoot him with your gun. It's as simple as that. I can already see the headlines," he boasted, looking up as if reading a large inscription in the air. "2-year vendetta ends in gunfire, 2 killed. Oh yeah, it's just lovely." "What about Janet?" I asked. "Yeah, sorry about that," he said, looking at her. "You are what we call collateral damage. In other words, you were in the wrong place at the wrong time." "You'll never get away with this," I shouted. "Of course it will do, that's not a question." 20 minutes after you left your office this evening, a guy walked in. He took the check you gave Carla for cash and the contract you made her sign, so there's absolutely nothing to tie us to you. He also forged a couple of threatening emails that he sent from your computer to Art's personal email address. As soon as we get back, he'll hack into Art's laptop and edit the emails to match when they were supposedly sent. Carla will swear that you came to their house and threatened him personally. Then he took his pistol and disappeared. Apparently, you tracked him down to settle a score. It's foolproof, Blake. Staring down the barrel of a gun is no fun, but I had to know the whole story. I turned my face a little to the right and spoke into the microphone hidden under my collar. "Can you hear everything, Lieutenant?" "Every word," came a voice from the doorway. Both would-be killers turned to see Lieutenant Dan Reardon of the Chicago Police Department and several Illinois State Police officers pointing guns at them. Eric's jaw hit the floor as Carla screamed. "Hand over them," he demanded. Both Carla and Eric gave up their weapons. Eric looked back at me with an expression of complete shock. "How? You couldn't know. It was reliable. How could you guess?" I had to grin. "Actually, if you told me you found those numbered bills, I probably wouldn't have guessed," I said, looking at Carla. "Remember, I tried damn hard to find the money that your husband embezzled, and I didn't find anything. I knew that someone who was so good at making money disappear without a trace would have no problem hiding it from the divorce court. He'd convince the judge he was broke, and you'd get nothing. I also thought it was a little strange that you didn't want to give me a check for my fee. Not many women feel safe walking around with that much cash in their wallet. Then I found out that you lied to me. You said you went to the police and filed a missing persons report, but when I called to see if they were actively investigating, I was told there was no report. When I put everything together, something didn't smell right. I didn't fully understand it, but I felt like something was wrong. When you said that only you can give hubby these papers, I realized that everything that is happening will become clear when we get here. I called the lieutenant and told him my plan. You, I said, turning to Eric, were not the only one who was watching us. By the time I finished my little speech, Reardon had handcuffed the two criminals. "Are you going to be okay?" "Yeah, I'll be fine," I replied as he handed me back my gun and put the other one in the evidence bag. "I need a full recorded statement from you as soon as possible." "I'll come tomorrow," I answered. We all watched from the doorway as the police put Wilson and Carla into separate cars and drove away. "I need a drink," Richardson announced. "How about you, Blake?" "Yes, I could use some whiskey neat." He looked at Janet, who was sitting at the small kitchen table. "You are cute?" Without saying a word, she simply looked up at him. Then we both saw that her hands were shaking and there were tears in her eyes. Richardson rushed to her side, knelt next to her, and hugged her. "Oh, honey, everything is fine. Everything is fine." She hugged him and pressed her head against his chest. I thought we were going to die," she sobbed. "I really thought we were all going to die." While Richardson tried to console her, I went to where he kept the drinks and poured 3 whiskeys. "Here," I said, placing 2 of them on the table. It took a couple of hard drinks and almost an hour of soothing and coaxing from her boyfriend before Janet was able to speak in full sentences again. When she finally spoke again, her words made a lot of sense, at least to me. I was about to leave when she looked up at me. "Mr. McDaniels, we owe you our lives. I don't know how we can thank you enough." This didn't exactly sit well with Richardson. "Janet, he brought them straight to us." "Damn it, Art. They would have found us sooner or later anyway." "You know, when Carla found those bills, you were dead. She couldn't take the money from them if you were alive, but as your widow, she had legal access." At that moment, her face lit up with a smile. "Honey, I know how we can repay Blake for saving our lives. Get back the money you embezzled from your old company." "What?" Richardson shouted. "No way, honey." "Art, you told me you're worth about $9 million. Was it true?" "Yes, but how many of them did you steal?" 4 million? I intervened. She looked genuinely shocked. $4 million? She gasped, looking at Richardson. Art, I'm not going to live on stolen money? 4 out of 9? That leaves $5 million. This is more than we could spend in 2 lifetimes. Honey, there is a reason why I appropriated this money. I don't care, she replied. It was wrong, it was illegal. I want you to return the money. How will the fact that I return the money help him? It will restore his authority. That's how it is, she replied. Once again, I had to put in my 2 cents. Not to mention the 10% search reward I'll get. She looked up at Richardson. You see, she grinned. Darling, if you love me as much as you say, then you will return it. Richardson was apparently as good at talking to the ladies as he was at hiding money. I knew it would snow in hell before he handed over the money, so I left them there to argue and headed home. Tired, hungry, and planning to spend the next 3 hours on the road. I stopped at a quaint little country diner to have breakfast before starting the long walk back. On the way, all I could think about was Stacy's suggestion to try again. Being single was a double-edged sword. On the one hand, I had complete freedom to go where I needed to and do what I needed to do. I didn't have to tell anyone anything or worry about checking on anyone if I was away for a long time. On the other hand, coming home to an empty apartment and having dinner with TV was not what I called living a high life. I remember when she and I got married. It wasn't just quarrels. We had some good times, really good times. I kept going back and forth in my mind. I would never tell a soul about this. No detective as tough as me will admit this, but I cried when we parted. Maybe we could find a compromise. It was a little after 2 o'clock in the afternoon when I returned to my office. I was tired and irritated. Not only did I miss out on a $50,000 bonus, I didn't get paid at all. Of course, the downside was that the story would end up in the newspapers. It would be good for business. Taking a manila envelope from my desk drawer, I wrote on the front, "The Richardson-Wilson case." Then put in my mileage records and some receipts for my accountant. Then I went to my email and typed Richardson's name into the search engine. Wilson wasn't lying. There were 2 backdating letters that he was talking about. I checked my file cabinet, and as stated, both copies of the receipts I gave Carla and the contract she signed were gone. I called the lieutenant and told him what I had found. I asked if I could just take a screenshot of the email, but he told me not to do anything until he sent a computer forensics expert to take a look. He said it would take a couple of hours, which meant I would have to stay and wait. Just what I wanted to hear. By the time the expert came and left, it was closer to 6 o'clock. On the way home, I stopped at a cafe and immediately went to bed as soon as I entered my apartment. The next morning, I woke up to the phone ringing. When I picked it up to answer it, I saw that I had slept through several more calls. "Hello," I said in a voice that indicated that I had not yet woken up from sleep. "Mr. McDaniels, this is Eloise Dowling from Chicago Tribute. I'm waiting outside your office. Are you coming soon yet?" "What's the matter, Miss Dowling?" "I want to interview you regarding your role in the arrest of Eric Wilson," she told me. Okay, everything was coming back into focus. I assumed the calls I missed were also from reporters. I looked at my watch. Hell, it was 9:20, and I hadn't even had a chance to shower yet. I still had to go down to the police station and give a statement. It was going to be a busy day. I asked Eloise to drop her card in the mailbox at my door and I would call her when I had some free time. After taking a shower, I had toast and coffee for breakfast. I was at the 1st District Police Station a little before 11. "What is this?" asked Lieutenant Reardon. I handed him an envelope 2 inches thick, the size of a legal document. "Wilson didn't choose me out of nowhere, Dan. For the past 6 months, I have been investigating his case on my own. I don't have hard evidence yet, but he was laundering millions for someone. He also has his hand in the cookie jar, enough to bring charges of theft, embezzlement, and possibly racketeering. That's almost all, but I've wasted enough time and money on this case, and it's yours," I told him. "Thank you so much," he replied sarcastically, as if we didn't have enough to worry about. We entered the interrogation room, where a videographer had already been installed. There was also a tape recorder on the table. After 2 hours of testimony, Reardon and I went to lunch. I've known him since he was a rookie cop, and I was still working for a security company. By the time I got back to the office, it was already 3 o'clock, and I was thinking about calling Eloise back. I can always use free advertising. Either that or go to Plato. I was still trying to make a decision when I heard my door open. Looking up, I thought it was another reporter. Not much surprises me anymore, but he definitely surprised me. I wasn't sure whether I should take out the gun or not. "Richardson, what are you doing here?" Without saying a word, he sank into a chair and tossed a letter-sized envelope onto my desk. "What is this?" "2 cashier's checks, the first for $3,600,000, issued to my former company. The second is your 10% search fee," he said. "Janet was worried that Walker would cheat you, so she insisted on 2 checks. I didn't believe it. What kind of joke?" "No joke, what can I say? I love this woman." "Sorry for saying this," I said sarcastically, "but you don't look like the type who could fall in love with someone worth $4 million. "Yes, well, you see, you don't know me as well as you think. I created this company, McDaniels. Created her using only his blood, sweat, and tears. And I made damn good money. I was proud of what I achieved. When I met Carla, I was on top of the world. She was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen, and she was crazy about me. Or so I thought. Anyway, after a year of marriage, I couldn't believe how much money she had lost. I should have put an end to it, but I didn't want to risk losing her. So instead, I thought about expanding the business. I met Walker at a party. We got to talking, and he offered me the money needed to develop the company. He was supposed to be a silent partner, but the next moment I discovered that his office was next to mine. He then began taking part in business and strategy meetings. We suddenly started doing business with Dubai's companies and changing suppliers. He and I constantly quarreled. One day, looking around, I saw that he had built his own small empire based on my company. The only reason he kept me around was because of my name, and I knew that wouldn't last forever. Walker is a snake, and I understood perfectly well that they were going to cheat me. Then I started putting together my own golden parachute. It only took me a year to lose these $4 million. My biggest mistake was underestimating you. You caught me red-handed, but I knew you'd never find the money. How Carla found these numbers, I have no idea. I know it had to be some stupid accident. What about Janet? How did she get involved in all this? She was my savior. I met her about 4 years ago. By that time, I already knew that my marriage was a complete fiction. Carla was seen running around the city with a dozen different men. I would have divorced her, but with all these problems with the company, I just couldn't find the time. My life was already difficult enough without a long and expensive divorce. When I met Janet, everything fell into place. She was beautiful, kind, and a good listener. She became my refuge. In the end, we fell in love with each other. Now I was curious. What about Kathy Hayer? What's with her? Katie is a friend, that's all. Walker's secretary said you had fun with her too. Dory always sees the worst in people. I think she thought I was having sex with Katie because I sent her flowers a couple of times. Come to think of it, I also asked her to order dinner for Katie and I once or twice. The truth is that she was having a hard time breaking up with her long-term lover. She was depressed, and I tried to show her that it wasn't her fault. That's all. "Anyway," he said, standing up abruptly, "now you know the whole story of my life. The cops don't want me to leave before the trial, so I think I'll be here for a while. But once this is over, Janet and I plan to spend the rest of our lives soaking up the tropical sun somewhere. Take care, McDaniels," were his last words as he closed the door behind him. One thing I've learned in my business is that there is no such thing as black and white, and there are always more than 2 sides to every story. I looked again at the check with my name on it, $400,000. I still couldn't believe it. On the way home, I took it to my accountant. I told him to put $20,000 in my account and figure out how to keep as much of the rest as possible from Uncle Sam, legally, of course. The next morning, I walked into Walker's outer office. Dory was no more glad to see me than last time. "You're like a bad penny, McDaniels." "I think he'll want to see me, dollface." I have something for him. The bleached blonde pressed the intercom button and told Walker I had something for him. He will see you, she told me, pointing to the door to his office. I didn't sit down. I really didn't want to do this. If Walker was the fraud Richardson made him out to be, he didn't deserve what I was about to give him. Sometimes in my business, you have to do some pretty nasty things, and this was one of them. I took the envelope out of my inside coat pocket and threw it on his desk. He read the company name on the front. "What is this?" "Open it and find out," I answered. His facial expression seemed to me to be about the same as my own. 3 million? 6, he almost shouted, looking at me. "Did you get them back?" What about the rest?" "I get 10% as a search reward, remember?" No, I don't remember that at all. Richardson was right. Walker was a snake in the grass. "I thought you might say so," I told him. "So here's a copy of the contract you signed when you first hired me," I said, throwing the 3-page agreement on his desk. Okay, he replied, knowing that I had all the aces in my hands. "I suppose I should thank you." "Don't worry," I told him. "I was looking at 38 the other day, but I think having to give you this money is the most unpleasant thing I've done all week." When I got to my office, I picked up the newspaper and read the policeman's account of what happened at the lake house. It's time to tell you your version. I borrowed a couple of chairs from the employment agency next door and called a small press conference in my office after lunch. This little Eloise was as cute as a kitten and looked at me with big eyes all the time. Stacy and I never put any limits on each other. We were both free to do whatever we wanted with whoever we wanted. A week ago, I had no doubt that I would have been dancing in the sheets with that little slut from the newspaper, but for some reason, suddenly, it seemed wrong to me. Then I checked my bank balance online and smiled when I saw that $20,000 was already in my account. I decided to take a chance and called one of the upscale restaurants in town and made a reservation for late evening. Then I needed to make sure Stacy was available that evening. When I told her where we were going, she said she had nothing to wear. I told her not to worry about it. I knew she was still wearing the same size as when we got married. I needed to go home and get ready, but first, I had to make a couple of stops. I rang Stacy's doorbell at 6:30, which gave her time to finish getting ready. She screamed when she saw the dress. "Blake, it's beautiful, but how can you afford it? It must have cost a fortune." "What, did you rob a bank?" "No, I was just able to finally get the debt. Now hurry up and put it on, we have less than an hour." Throughout dinner, Stacy questioned me about the debt I told her about. I just told her she would have to wait for the morning paper. I knew reporters would hype the story to sell more newspapers. Letting her read about it would help me stay humble. I told myself with a small smile. We ate the last bites of our desserts and were about to leave, finishing our coffee, when I decided it was time. "Oh, I almost forgot," I said, reaching into my jacket pocket. When she saw the Tiffany ring box I placed in front of her, she screamed so loudly that the entire restaurant looked at each other. Tears immediately flowed from those gorgeous eyes as she tried to slide the large pear-shaped diamond onto her finger. She raised her hand up for everyone to see. "We're engaged!" she shouted. We heard shouts of "Congratulations!" followed by applause from both patrons and staff. I have a good accountant. I knew he would invest my money wisely, allowing me to be more selective in the clients and cases I take on. Life with Stacy has been absolutely wonderful, and I look forward to a wonderful future together. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one.